Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Nick Watts, and welcome to another episode of College Football Under Review, a show made by a football fan for those football fans everywhere. So, in this episode, we're taking the Big 12 Conference under review, and our show will continue to mimic the same type of format as last week's ACC Deep Dive, with our tiers and the final standings coming at the end, and some other factors that we have going into the Big 12 as a league. And if you haven't seen the ACC episode, definitely give it a listen. It's a good one. So with that being said, let's take the Big 12 under review. Now, the Big 12. This is a conference where if you enjoy parity in a league full of high-powered offenses, then you need to watch this conference, and it is the conference for you. Since the departure of Texas and Oklahoma, it seems that the rest of the remaining teams that have stayed in the league and the ones that were added in the alignment are really still fighting to see who the king of the hill will be for this conference. But it seems that slowly we're starting to see some of the more cream of the crop rise up above some others and set themselves apart from everyone else. But I believe about 6 teams have a really strong chance to make the playoff and win the Big 12 and get that automatic bid. Now, a lot of people may argue that this is not the strongest conference, but I 100% believe that week in and week out, this conference gives us some of the best entertainment we've ever seen ever since the Big 12 was originally founded. And I personally love watching Big 12 games week in and week out. And when we're talking about parity, let's just look at the last 7 years of the Big 12 championships when they have actually played a championship game. Oklahoma kind of ran away with it when they had Lincoln Riley as their head coach. From 2017 to 2020, they had the conference in a chokehold. And then 2021, Baylor won it. 2022, Kansas State, phenomenal game. I remember watching that game. Max Duggan was the quarterback for TCU against them, and he willed their way to a Big 12 tied overtime game. And then Kansas State won. TCU then, as we all know, eventually went to the playoffs, beat Michigan, and then just got completely derailed by Georgia. And then 2023 was Texas. Steve Sarkisian came in, took the last one before they went to the SEC. And last year we had Arizona State, the 2024 champs, who was in the bottom of the conference. So this has so much parity ever since Oklahoma and Texas left. Oklahoma more so, but you kind of saw Oklahoma hasn't really been there for the Big 12 championships once Lincoln Riley really left. And so it's a very interesting conference to go into. And before we go into these tiers, I can tell you every day I woke up this week, I would look at, these teams. And I think every morning when I was sipping my cup of coffee, I had to change the tiers, the rankings, the final standings, everything every morning because I woke up feeling a different way about a different team. And that's how tough predicting this conference is. I believe it is 100% the hardest conference to predict, but that's why we have it in a tier list and not concrete. But I'm going to guess at the end, too. I'm going to predict what I think it's going to look like. This one is 100% subject to change by the time we hit our final predictions for the season come the week before week 0. And we're going to do that for every conference because there has been some shakeup recently. But we are getting right into the title contending teams. So the first one, Arizona State. I mean, what else can you say about this team? The season they had last year, winning the Big 12 title and making it to the playoffs, almost beating Texas, was such a shock in the Big 12. but I don't think it was a shock for their head coach, Kenny Dillingham. The good news for this squad is that they're returning so many players back on offense and defense. Quarterback Sam Leavitt is back after receiving the Big 12 Freshman of the Year, throwing for 2,885 yards, throwing 24 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and having a 61.7 completion rating. One of his favorite targets, wide receiver Jordan Tyson, is by far the biggest skill player returning after having over 1,000 receiving yards last season. And not to mention, they have to replace Cam Scatterbo, but they are getting Army transfer Kanye Udo, who will attempt to replace Scatterbo this season. Scatterbo was a generational player. Love him. Loved watching him play. He was phenomenal in that game against Texas. Hopefully Kanye Udo can fill that spot because he has big shoes to fill. 3 all-conference players return for the defense at safety, defensive tackle, and linebacker that allows for leadership to be found in every part of the defensive side of the field. The linebackers and cornerbacks see 5 returning starters as they lead the middle of the field. That should be a dominant force within the Big 12. This team is under Kenny Dillingham, and he has been able to keep so many key players who started last season and has been able to continuously fill the depth chart in recruiting. And the fact that the coaching staff has stayed gives them a chance for a very strong 2025 season. And they are 100% one of the top cream of the crop. Saying this again, we're going through all these tiers alphabetically based on team. And then the final standings I give at the end of the episode is where I rank all of these based off this. So just letting you know again, we're going alphabetically. At the end of the episode, you'll see the final list. But next we have Baylor. Baylor had one of the best offenses in the country last season by far, being able to achieve the 20th rank in total offense. That offense, in my opinion, looks like it's going to continue to roll into the season with 8 starters returning and 7 of them being upperclassmen. Quarterback Sawyer Robertson had over 3,000 passing yards, 28 touchdowns, and was in the top 20 for pass efficiency. This offense looks like one of the deadliest in the country, with 4 out of 5 offensive linemen returning, as well to make sure the run game can balance out their offensive scheme. They say opposites attract, and that's correct in this sense, as Baylor's defense was pretty bad within the Big 12. Not shocking there. The Big 12 defenses aren't known throughout the country that much. But the defense returns 5 starters and uses the portal to get Power 4 upgrades in all phases of the defense. Expect linebacker, though, Keaton Thomas to really try and be the leader on the defense after having one of the more outstanding seasons for the Bears in the defensive squad last season. They really have the ability to make the title game if they can get through the first half of their schedule, as they really do have a gauntlet of tougher opponents through that. Especially week 1 against Auburn. That is going to be a very fun out-of-conference game to watch. And it is, in a previous episode, all the way back at the beginning of June, we had that as one of the top 8 games to watch week 1. So outside of Baylor, next we have Iowa State. Rocco Becht seems to be the big man on campus at Iowa State as the quarterback, and his arm definitely commands the offense again this season after having accrued over 6,500 yards passing and 48 touchdowns in the last 3 seasons. The offense returns the majority of its starting offensive line, but the wide receivers had to replenish with transfers, as Becht's best 2 targets both went in the draft this past spring. Outside of that, there's no real leading running back, so Carson Hansen and Abu Sama III will return as a tandem and probably get a share of the runs. One of the reasons this team really came short last year and got absolutely demolished by Arizona State in the title game was due to the amount of injuries they sustained on the defense, as 13 players went down over the 2024 season. I don't care what depth you have, 13 injuries on defense is going to cripple your game. Some of these players are returning, and I believe they will have a very big chip on their shoulder after being embarrassed by Arizona State University. But the rest of the defense has the big question of how effective will their newly assembled defensive line be attacking the quarterback for opposing teams. With the offense being led by Becht, who is very senior and has a lot of experience, will still be dangerous. And the really only concern is the defense, as they do have another chance to return to the Big 12 title match. But we'll see if this next team, their week one matchup, has anything to say about it. And that week one matchup is Kansas State. Kansas State and Iowa State are going to be playing in Ireland week one, kicking off the season. Another one of our top 8 games to watch. But now that the Wildcats are able to return a quarterback, as they lost Will Howard, quarterback Avery Johnson and the rest of the offensive skill positions gained experience last season, and they should be stronger for the 2025 season. The O-line is the weakest aspect of this offense that will be leaned on to have a good pass attack if they can stop the sacks from the opposing defense. Wide receiver Jace Brown definitely looks to be the favorite target this season, along with a tight end room that has both the ability to catch and block. Their tight end room is very deep, as almost all of them, I believe, caught a touchdown in last season. The defense is solid, as they are speculated to have by far the best defensive line in the league, who is 7 deep, and they argue that can play anywhere else in Power 4 programs. Now, the secondary is going to be the key to their success, and senior VJ Payne will have to step up, as the rest of the secondary is inexperienced. Possibly the biggest factor for this team's success could be their season opener, like I stated earlier, against Iowa State and Ireland. As outside of that, they only have one really difficult road game, so the schedule is in their favor. If everything really is able to click on defense, and the offense, as we believe, has taken the steps during the off season to improve fundamentally, watch out for this team, because they could buzzsaw through so many of their competitors in the Big 12. Now, this is a team that I have as a dark horse, and that is TCU. TCU is a dark horse team that makes it up in this tier because of a couple of reasons. Quarterback Josh Hoover broke the school's single-season passing record last season with 3,949 yards. Although he will have to look at a couple of new players at the skill position, we can't argue that his talent remains with this team. The offensive line has upperclassmen leading the charge who were key players in the pass defense last season. If the offense can establish the run game within league play, this team will be circled on every defensive coordinator's calendar. The defense has slowly improved since their hiring of defensive coordinator Andy Avalos. In points allowed per game last season was only 24.6. With solid defensive returns and gaps being filled by the portal, this defense seems to be one of the strongest during the Sonny Dykes era at TCU. With both sides of the team retaining their top talents, I think this team has a chance to do something extremely wild if they can get through a midseason gauntlet. So with that being said, we have our last team in this title contender category and tier, and that's Texas Tech. Now, we have talked about the Red Raiders before on this show, and maybe one of the reasons that we have them in this tier is because of the amount of money they have put in their football program and sports programs in general. The team has gone out and gotten transfers to back up the wide receiver room and the offensive line to help their quarterback, Bryn Morton, continue to be a threat on the field with his arm. With all the money that they have, I think that they think they have something with Bryn Morton because they didn't go get a new quarterback. I think they like him and he fits their scheme well. And they probably worked a lot with him over the offseason to get the scheme going. And the defense is a much different animal after last season. This Texas Tech team went 132nd in pass defense. Linebackers Jacob Rodriguez and Ben Roberts are going to be the key factors for the middle of the field this season. Almost the entire defensive line has been transferred in to help the program along with secondary positions. As more and more teams attempt to use this transfer portal to jumpstart and use it as a fast-track method for success, we really have yet to see anyone successfully use the portal as a roster overhaul to yield positive returns. It's definitely going to be interesting if Texas Tech can shake up the conversation for the playoffs, as they have a tough midseason stretch. And a lot of pressure is being put on this team with how much money is being put in. I believe that the amount of money they poured into the program, at least for this season, is somewhere around the $28 million price mark range, which is pretty crazy. But we really can't deny the fact that all these Texas teams are starting to become so much more potent in not only NIL, but also with recruiting, because as we stated in our group of five, and talking about the Pac-12 getting Texas State as a team for 2026. I know we're going a little off topic here, but it's going to make sense in a second. Texas is a big money market, big population, big recruiting state, and you can't deny that Texas Tech is going to be one of those top contenders because they are in the state of Texas. So that's my end thought on that. And that completes our title contenders. So next we have the bowl contenders, bowl teams. The teams that I think are out of the conference title, but should definitely make a bowl game. First one, Colorado. The winds of change have certainly hit the mountain range of Boulder, Colorado, as a generational talent in Shadur. Oh, wait, never mind. No, I mean Travis Hunter. Yeah, he's gone, not Shadur. But yes, the big question is who will be the starting QB also now that Shadur is gone. Currently, there is somewhat a challenge between Liberty transfer Caden Salter and blue chip recruit Julian Lewis. But Salter should be the starter, in my opinion, as he has more experience, and it will give Lewis an opportunity to develop under him. Salter was so effective at Liberty in passing. I think Lewis has great potential to really learn from him and gain experience, and especially get more used to the Colorado offense. It's definitely a good thing to have. If Salter gets injured, Julian Lewis can go in. But I think that the fact that they want to start Salter kind of has me thinking they're going to be a bowl team. The offense does seem to be different in every facet, which should be fun to see with Dion and how he continues to develop the program. He's continuously put Colorado in prime time. They're always talked about, and I think that is such a smart strategy with NIL nowadays and social media. 3 returning starters on the defense as well makes it a big struggle to really figure out if they will be able to handle all the offenses found within the league that should tear through them. I will come out and say that I personally do like Deion Sanders and what he has done for Colorado and what he's built so far. And I think this is a major culture year for him as we see his sons depart on the offense and defense, and his Heisman player, Travis Hunter, has left the program and permanently put his stamp of history in that Colorado program. The conference title is very out of reach for them, but I think they have enough winnable games on their schedule to make a bowl game. If they are able to beat Georgia Tech in their first game at home for the 2025 season, then I think that this team could not win the title, but still their floor is a lot higher than I thought it would be originally if they do beat Georgia Tech their week 1. So outside of Colorado, I've got Houston as a bowl contender. Now, Texas A&M transfer quarterback Connor Wegman will be leading the Cougars offense after in 2024, the Cougar offense the team was 128th in total offense. Not to mention they had 2 shutouts last season and only 1 loss by 1 possession. What does that mean? They got their britches blown off. If head coach Willie Fritz is right, and I think he is, in hiring his old offensive coordinator, Slade Nagel, who was under him at Tulane, he should revitalize this offense with Connor Wegman. A mix of transfers and returners make up the skill position rooms for this team, all coming from Group of 5 schools, with 2 offensive linemen returning to the program. They went and got more experienced transfers over younger talent to give the position depth. 4 upperclassmen return as starters for the defense, spaced out along the backfield. All of them in the transfers at various positions they have brought in will have to adjust to the new defensive coordinator, Austin Armstrong. The linebackers weren't the best group last season due to injury, and it will be a big question if they can stay healthy after some damaging leg injuries. If this team wants to be successful, they need to have an offense that is worth something in this league. If not, they could easily fall behind if the defense doesn't adapt to the new defensive coordinator and if they see some of those leg injuries come back. But I really do like Willie Fritz. I think he used to coach at Tulane. He has an eye for these Group of 5 talent, and I think he has got some key players from the portal that kind of went unnoticed. And that's why I have him as a bowl contender. And next is Kansas. Kansas is my wild card for this conference. Now, although last year wasn't their ideal season the way the Jayhawks would have liked, their preseason rankings had them pretty lofty. And I think that they should be optimistic with how they move forward. Jalen Daniels didn't do really anything spectacular statistically last season, but played well the second half of the season. Running back Daniel Hishaw Jr. is easily going to be looked at to be a weapon in an attempt to balance out the offense because the wide receivers and tight end rooms see no returning starters. The offensive line has 3 out of 5 up front looking confident to help aid this backfield. And the defensive line returns only 3 starters from last season, as the strongest part of the defense is gone. The other 7 starters will need to get communication set and get on the same page very early in this season for their defense in the backfield, as Missouri hits their schedule week 3 in a rivalry game that is being brought back from the dead, which I am so happy for. Love this game. This program looks like it will be in contention for the Big 12 title at some point in the season, but I believe they will crumble come October when they play more in-conference opponents. The bowl game is the ceiling for them, and head coach Lance Leopold better not be stuck standing on the floor if they have another subpar season. And the last team in this bowl category is Utah. Finally, the Utah program has been released from the clutches of quarterback Cam Rising, and they replace him with the New Mexico transfer Devon Dampier, as well as bringing the offensive coordinator from New Mexico, Jason Beck, who together led New Mexico to a top 5 offense in the nation. It'll be interesting to see if they can do the same at Utah. The duo will be taking over an offense needing a new identity and has some pillars on the offensive line to help accomplish that feat. The defense has been able to maintain its depth somewhat as they hope not to drop off too terribly in talent. The linebackers will probably be the only consistent threat for this defensive group as they get deeper into this season. The real question on defense, though, is how dominant will the defensive line and secondary be, as it really hinders the season's outlook for Utah. Now, we can't sit here and not say that Kyle Whittingham has been a great coach for Utah and has one of the top 5 longest tenures of any head coach. And they are really going to need his experience to lead them to a bowl game, as they have a very tough schedule. The team has so many new players starting on both sides of the ball that their limbo is, in my opinion, a bowl game come the wintertime. I think that even though it's very up in the air, I would lean on Kyle Whittingham and his coaching prowess and experience to keep them as at least top of they're not going below the bottom half of the league is what I'm trying to say. So now we get down to the rebuilds or crumbling. First one is Arizona. The Wildcats were anything but wild last season on offense after a poor performance, going 4-8 on the season with their starting QB Noah Fafita returning. The offense struggled to score effectively as only one game last season had them losing by 1 possession. Due to this, they have gotten a new offensive coordinator in Seth Doge, who will have new wide receivers and running backs from the transfer portal to help establish his up-tempo offense. Oh, and they also signed 11 offensive linemen to help get this offense back on track. The defense will see 6 returning starters coming back after they had injury troubles last season. They surprisingly were able to keep a strong rushing defense, but crumbled against passing attacks. The good news is that the secondary returns the majority of its depth that will be needed. The team only has 4 away games, which really helps them in their schedule, as it doesn't look as daunting as last year, which we have them right outside the bowl teams just because I just don't see them winning these home games against these bigger opponents. And next is BYU. Jake Retzlaff is gone, and I really think that this is going to it has shaken up the locker room as a whole. I do like their coach, but their defense and offense lost so many strong players, and the fact that Retzlaff is gone really just has me looking at this team in a different light. And sorry, I had to get some water. I just really don't see much of a ceiling for them. Even Vegas had them before Retzlaff left, they had 1-9 odds to win the Big 12. After he left, 1-19 odds. That's a pretty drastic jump. And because of that, I just don't have faith in BYU because Vegas knows more than we do. Let's be honest. So outside of BYU, we've got Cincinnati. Quarterback Brendan Sorsby will continue to have his center Gavin Gernhardt to rely on and his tight end. But outside of that, much else returns for the Cincinnati offense. The coaching staff in response got a whole slew of new wide receivers who should be expected to start come week 1. The offensive line has the same treatment, but transfer running back Tawee Walker from Wisconsin could definitely be the playmaker they need to set the tempo on offense. Key defensive tackles make a return on the defense to give the team a strong front, as the secondary is going to be the weakest aspect. The coaching job for Cott Satterfield already looks like it's turning into a hot seat after having an 8-16 record after 2 seasons with the Bearcats. The offensive skill positions will certainly be an upgrade from the previous year if they can limit the turnovers. With the defensive secondary being the biggest question with lots of new turnover, we could see another poor showing from this team, and they need to win a couple of games that they definitely shouldn't to make a bowl game, and I definitely don't see them doing it. The next team is Oklahoma State. I love Mike Gundy. Last season was hands down the worst season for him and his tenure at Oklahoma State. The uncertainty in the quarterback battle doesn't help out anything either between Haas, Gingy, and Zane Flores, who really hasn't taken a snap in a single college football game. The development of these players is crucial for the success of the season if the offense wants to be potent. The only returner on offense is the tight end, Josh Ford. And Mike Gundy hasn't been a strong supporter of the portal, but this offseason, they went out and got around 40 portal players, which puts this team on a whole nother level of uncertainty as a whole. After going 3-9 last season, Mike Gundy went and got a new offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator, as well as a whole new cast of characters that puts this team so up in the air that I don't know if I can accurately put them to make a bowl game. As much as I love Mike Gundy and he usually exceeds expectations, maybe the portal and his time has finally come to an end, and he becomes one of these coaches that we see slowly fade away because he can't keep up with everyone else. The next team is UCF. This is another program with a quarterback battle, but this one has a 3-way battle with returning quarterback Ja'Cory Brown, as he's been struggling the last 2 seasons. And it seems the competition will continue until fall camp concludes and their quarterback will be set. It's very up in the air, but I don't think Ja'Cory Brown will be the starting quarterback. The rest of the running back room will be in stable condition, though, which is needed after the starters in the wide receiver room left the program. This was due to transfer portal or just graduation. The defense looks to be in better shape than the offense as they at least bring back some returning starters, and the rest of the defense is filled with transfers and players from the depth chart in previous seasons. Now that Scott Frost is back at UCF, I think they have the ability to be on the rise, but they're not going to do anything crazy this year. The defense should be stronger than the offense only due to the fact that the quarterback battle is still up in the air, and they need to address that come fall camp. So the last team, West Virginia. Rich Rodriguez is back in town, and he has to deal with everyone leaving town after the program went 6-7 last season. Running back Jaheim White will be returning as one of the centerpieces of this offense as he loves the spread. The O-line has completely evaporated from last season, which is crucial for his spread offense he wants to install again. The defense has players from the depth chart looking to add much needed stability, and the crucial part that needs to take major strides is the back seven and how they can effectively communicate with each other. If the defensive coordinator can confidently execute his scheme, then they should only need to worry about the offensive production. Many fans are hopeful that Rich Rodriguez is back, but it's just like Scott Frost. These guys are going to be good for the program again, but I don't think that they're going to get anything done in year one. So that completes our tier list. And there's an aspect of the Big 12 I have to talk about that's pretty interesting after I take a sip of water. And that's that this league has some of the most experienced coaches, and they seemingly haven't been able to ever get it done in the future, which is very interesting. And so I'm going to list out a couple of them. And these all have more than 10 years coaching. And first, Willie Fritz. He has gone 212 and 124 over 28 years coaching. He did such a great job at Tulane, and I think that he will definitely increase Houston over the years if he doesn't go to another high-profile job, which I think he will if he can jumpstart the Houston program in the next 2 to 3 years, unless they give him that Texas money. Next is Lance Leopold. He's gone 166 and 67 over the last 18 years. It's really going to be interesting to see if he can actually turn this Kansas team and program around, as he's gone 22 for 28 in the last 4 years with them. And like we mentioned earlier, Mike Gundy at Oklahoma State, he has been one of the most iconic coaches in college football, yet he's never been able to break the mold at Oklahoma State. He's kept them as a relevant team in the conference race, but it seems like over the last couple of seasons, he's kind of gone down in his coaching ability. And then we've got Kyle Whittingham, who is him and, my bad, we got to talk about Sonny Dykes first. Sonny Dykes is the only one in this group of seasoned coaches that has actually been able to make a playoff appearance, and that was in the 14 playoff, which was so much harder to get into. And so that's why I have TCU as one of our dark horses, is because Sonny Dykes has a better defense than usual, and he has one of the most deadliest quarterbacks in this conference. And now we get to Kyle Whittingham. Him and Mike Gundy both have some of the longest tenures of any coach at one program. He's gone 167 for 86 in 20 years with Utah. I'm very interested to see what he can do now that Cam Rising is gone. Over the last about 8 seasons, it really hasn't seen that they've done anything electric or new. And then we've got Rich Rodriguez, who used to coach at West Virginia at one point from 2001 to 2007. But over his career, he's gone 190 for 129 over 27 years. And what's so interesting about all of these seasoned coaches is that, yes, they've brought continued success and a standard that is needed in such a volatile league, but only one of these has been able to do that. And it's interesting because Kenny Dillingham has gone 14 of 12 over 2 years at Arizona State, and he's already made a playoff appearance. So it's interesting to see how these older coaches with a longer coaching tenure and history are able to adapt with this portal. It seems that the younger coaches, kind of like Kenny Dillingham, Kalen DeBoer, we're looking at the Oregon head coach, Dan Lanning, they're starting to show that maybe the younger generation is starting to take over, and it'll be interesting if any of these older coaches can do it. But outside of that, we've got our final standings and predictions for this conference. It goes like this. In the title contender group, we've got one Kansas State playing Arizona State in the title game. I think Arizona State will win this game just because Sam Leavitt will be more experienced and Kenny Dillingham is a coach that I love. And then we've got 3 Iowa State just because I think that they will lose to Kansas State week 1 and that's going to just get them out. 4 TCU as our dark horse. I think they're going to surprise a lot of people. 5 is going to be Baylor. 6 Texas Tech to finish out the title contenders. And then the bowl teams, 7 Kansas. They're our wild card, and I have them up there just outside because I think they will do something wild this season. 8 is Utah. 9 is Houston, and 10 Colorado. Colorado barely making a bowl game. And then the rebuild or crumbling, 11 West Virginia, 12 BYU, 13 Oklahoma State, 14 UCF, 15 Arizona, and 16 Cincinnati. So take a look at this. This is our predictions for the Big 12 final standings. Still subject to change like everything based on what we know after some fall camp news. And we will give that updated list of all our conference predictions come before week 0. But that wraps up our deep dive into the Big 12. Next week, we are going into the Big 10 Conference. They having their media days as we speak, and I am very much excited to do that. After the Big 10, we've got the SEC. Then we've got our final predictions for the season. And then we've got our week 0 preview. Can you believe it? We've got less than 30 days before college football returns. The best part of the year is about to arrive. And we're going to take it all under review. So with that being said, I'm Nick Watts. Thank you all for tuning in to this episode. And we'll see you next time when we take more college football under review.